So thank you, Delana, for starting the recording. Happy October, everyone. I am coming to this space a little ruffled because the grade ed team is, some of us are traveling this week for a conference, which is very exciting, but I just got into my hotel room 5 minutes ago. So thank you in advance for your patience with me. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. I think Delana is going to help drop some links in the chat as we go. But I would love to start off. We have a packed agenda today. I know our last couple meetings, we've had everyone come off mute and introduce themselves. And we just have a lot of content today. So I'm going to invite everyone to introduce themselves in the chat. Delana, or can someone come off mute and let me know if you're seeing the welcome screen?
We are.
Okay, perfect. So I'd love to have folks put their name and their pronouns and then where they're joining from in the chat so we can see who's in the room. And if anyone wants to make an update to their name or to add their pronouns, you can do so by clicking the 3 dots in the top of your square and then changing your name. So as always, we're going to start off today by talking about Great Education's vision and mission. So Great Education Colorado's vision is that through public education, every Colorado student, regardless of their zip code, learning needs, language, identities, or the color of their skin, graduates prepared to lead their best life. Our mission is to harness the power of grassroots activism and diverse, inclusive networks to guarantee that public schools in every Colorado community are welcoming and adequately, equitably, and sustainably funded. And of course, as always, our goal for the network in our meeting today is to create a space for us to build community, learn from each other, and take action together. As you all likely know, we meet the second Tuesday of every month from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. In the next couple minutes, Delana will drop the link for the November meeting in the chat. And of course, we will send it out via email after this. That goes for all the links that we're sharing today. And then I just want to center us today in our Advocates Network community commitments. So we have, the first one is move up, move back, which is kind of, some people say, make space or take space, depending on how you usually show up in spaces like this. We'd love to see you either allow room for some other folks or sort of push yourself if you're someone who's usually more quiet. We also want to remind us that no one knows everything, but together we know a lot, and we're here to learn together. And then finally, in this space, we presume positive intent, but also want to acknowledge the impact of the things we say and do. All right. So I'm really excited to start off with some celebrations and highlights, and then we have a bunch more highlights a bit later in the slides. But my first celebration is for all of you for being here today. And last I saw, there were 20 of us on the call. I can't see how many there are now, but we're really excited for all of you who continue to show up with us every month. It's great to have some new folks here today, which I know we do. So we have this Changemaker badge, which is for folks that are in the first step of their sort of journey with our Get It Done campaign. So many of you have progressed beyond Changemaker, but we just want to celebrate you all for being here today. And you are all change makers just by showing up to this meeting. And I think Delana can drop this image into the chat if anyone wants to save it and keep it as a reminder or share it on social media or anything like that. I also want to take a minute to celebrate and highlight the Great Education Colorado Luncheon, which we had last Friday or 2 Fridays ago. I know many of the folks on this call were there in the room. Thank you for being there. Thank you for your financial support of Great Ed. And I also bring this up to let you all know that, this movement is building. We had probably, I think, over 300 people at this tent at our luncheon a few weeks ago. And those people are reaching out to their networks. And there was just a lot of energy in this room around public education and fighting for our students and teachers in Colorado. So I just want to celebrate everyone who helped make this possible. Also, a big shout out to Delana on our team for putting it all together. But I'm really excited to let folks know that it's not just the people on this call today. There's like a big movement behind us. Okay. Any questions? Sorry, Delana, or anyone, feel free to come off mute. Are there any questions or anything before we go into some budget and funding updates? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to move on. But if you do have a question or if you want me to slow down, please just feel free to unmute and jump in as I go. So I know many of the folks on this call have probably heard this information already, but for any new folks and for anyone who needs a reminder, we wanted to start off by highlighting that the Protect Colorado's Future Coalition, which Great Education is a part of, filed 3 ballot measures at the title board last month. So they all are for 2026. They're all a graduated income tax with a tax cut on the first $100,000 that every individual or household makes. And this works out to be a cut in the effective tax rate for everyone who makes $500,000 or less a year. So the difference of the 3 measures that we filed are that the coalition filed are just in what they fund. So you can see the last one has no restrictions. The first 2 are education, healthcare, childcare, and then either public safety or workforce development. And these are sort of more experiments almost. None of these will be the final ballot measure, but they were filed with the title board so that Legislative Council could give some estimates on how much they predict that the measure might bring in so that we could sort of test some language to see what would work or what might not work. And then the coalition will use the learnings from this process to file what will end up being the final ballot measure. And we're also doing some work with, we're doing some polling and some message testing as well that will influence that. And for those on the call who may need a refresher, I just wanted to go over how this graduated income tax ballot measure connects back to TABOR, or the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, which is a very unique tax policy that Colorado has that no other state has. The 4 major provisions of TABOR are that it mandates tax policy changes be up to the voters. The state legislature actually cannot change our tax structure. It also forbids certain types of taxes, like right now, it forbids a graduated income tax. Currently, all income in Colorado is subject to a flat tax at 4.4%. TABOR also imposes a cap on revenue collections, which folks will be familiar with the TABOR refund checks, and so that's where that comes in. And then finally, it sets election provisions, and so that's why all the ballot measures say in like really scary all caps, shall the state of Colorado raise taxes by whatever the estimated total is, because that's actually a provision of TABOR that they have to write it that way. So to connect the two, the graduated income tax ballot measure that the coalition and many others are looking at for 2026 would change our state income tax to be a graduated income tax and would also allow the state to keep any revenue collected above the current 4.4% flat tax rate. So a lot of what we're talking about here with Advocates Network and the Get It Done campaign is about protecting and expanding funding for public education in our public schools. And some folks have rightfully pointed out, well, where is that money going to come from? The state budget is obviously in kind of a tough spot right now. And so we do need to protect the revenue that we already have for education. We want to advocate for more. And this ballot measure in the long term could be a solution to help bring in additional revenue. I'm going to keep moving on. But if anyone has questions, again, feel free to jump in, or I'm happy to follow up after. Okay, this is our last Advocates Network meeting before the elections, which are on Tuesday, November 4th. So I'm sure you all are very aware of that, but please don't forget to vote. And we just wanted to share our public education voter slate. It's not quite as robust as it has been in some other years because this is sort of an off year. But our overall slate is for folks to vote yes on propositions LL and MM, which are related to healthy school meals for all. Yes to candidates that are committed to public schools, and then yes on any local mill-in bonds, which I know a lot of districts have going this year. So just a little more about LL and MM. It is important that both of these pass, and they're very connected even though they're listed separately. To have the greatest impact, we'd like both of these measures to pass. And they're really about access to healthy food for Colorado families. So LL specifically would allow the state to keep money that we've already raised for the Healthy School Meals for All program for this year. And then voting yes on MM continues that program beyond this current school year and would allow any additional funds that are part of that program to be used to support SNAP, which we know has faced huge cuts at the federal level. So we hope that folks on this call will vote yes on both of those and spread the word among your networks. And something else I like to point out is that these measures do not have any tax impact for households making less than $300,000 per year. And then on the school board candidate side, again, I know this is very relevant for a lot of the folks we have joining us today. There's more complete questions in the public education voter slate, which hopefully Delana can drop in the chat and we can share out afterward. It's also on the Great Ed website. But while Great Ed does not endorse candidates directly, we have some recommendations for questions you can ask as you're considering who you'll be voting for in November. So you can ask about plans to support adequate and equitable school funding. You can ask whether they know about the school finance adequacy studies, or at least if they're willing to learn about them and to sort of uplift them and take action. You can ask about plans to ensure that district schools welcome all students and that they'll implement the social studies standards that passed a few years ago. And then, of course, you can ask about their stance on vouchers and sources of funding, if that's for public education or private education. Okay, our next update is more specifically about our Get It Done campaign And I know we've been talking a lot about this, but we wanted to clue you all into some of what's been happening behind the scenes with our state legislators. So, as you likely all know, Great Ed has been working very closely with Representative Jennifer Bacon. She's actually here in Mississippi with us this week for the peer conference that Lisa Lee and I are at, and also Julie from Colorado Statewide Parent Coalition. And then Jennifer Bacon is our fifth representative from Colorado. So she's super committed to this work, and she has made some great progress towards creating the blueprint for student success. So recently she was at the Colorado School Finance Project annual convening in Vail, which again, I think some of you on this call were there. And Representative Bacon talked personally with a lot of superintendents that were there. I think there were probably about 90 school districts represented. I saw her personally hand out her business card to a lot of superintendents and then take information from other people. And she talked a lot about scheduling school tours as well. So I know that tours have been scheduled, particularly in some of the more rural districts. And then other districts have expressed their interest in having legislators come out and actually see what the circumstances are, rather than sort of like imagining or having to hear secondhand. Representative Bacon also received input from all of these school districts about, she had a lot of particular questions that she actually linked to a survey during her presentation. So she has comments that people submitted directly with input that she can take back to her colleagues as they're thinking about putting together this blueprint for student success. And so far, she's gathered a group of about 12 legislators. They're also working with some subject matter experts, including Britt Miles and Susan Meek, who I am sure many of you are familiar with those folks. And we're, of course, working closely with Great Ed as well. And just really excited to see what this group continues to work on. But we will need the support of everyone here in the Advocates Network to help us get more legislators to join her work. And something we've been talking about lately is that even if you have a friendly legislator that is your representative, just because you are assuming that they are supportive of education or that they've told you that they are, we want to really be raising our voices to those folks and inviting them to join Representative Bacon's group and letting them know that education is really important to their constituents, because they're going to have to make some hard decisions this coming year, and we want them to know that education is not up for grabs in Colorado. Okay, I believe this is our last update, and then we'll get into some more conversation. I know I'm kind of breezing through this, so thank you all. At the federal level, this is something that we've talked about in our past meetings, but just as a reminder, the federal reconciliation bill that passed in July included something called the Educational Choice for Children Act, or the ECCA. It's also been called the Federal Tax Credit Voucher Scheme, depending who you ask. But this program offers a one-to-one tax credit for people who donate up to $1,700 to scholarship granting organizations. These kinds of organizations can then actually pass out vouchers that would be used for private education instead of public education. So it's directly diverting what should be public funds towards private education instead. And because our state tax system is so closely tied to the federal tax system, this also would impact Colorado's ability to collect taxes on people's income, especially if people on a large scale are making these donations. we could sort of be impacted on both a federal and state level. As we know, last year, Colorado voters said no on Amendment 80, which was also related to vouchers and school choice. I believe that's not the first time it's happened in Colorado, and a lot of other states in recent years have also rejected vouchers. It's generally not popular with the general public, and yet the administration has created this additional opportunity for governors to opt in. And so kind of rejecting the voice of the people and finding another way to make education privatization possible. So I'm excited to share that the Great Schools Thriving Communities Coalition, of which Great Ed is a co-convener, has decided that we really want to take a stance on this. Great Ed and many of the other organizations in the coalition have signed on to like federal letters that are going around. But we've decided as a coalition that we want to do something more. So the coalition is thinking about like media opportunities, a press release, perhaps an op-ed. And we're also thinking that we would like to deliver the sign-on letter directly to the governor ourselves rather than having it come from a national organization and saying, like, these are the Colorado groups that disagree. So we are still sort of strategizing as a coalition of exactly what that might look like, but we'd love to have anyone here on this call who's interested weigh in, or if you would like to do something in person, if we go that route, if you're interested in helping us write something or helping us place a piece, please type the word vouchers in the chat and I will follow up with you later.
Kristen Evie has her hand up.
Okay, thank you so much. Go ahead, Evie.
So, are you 100% sure that the governor is the one who opts in our state? Because I think there's an interpretation of it that leads it to where if your state has a different budgetary process, that it might not be up to the governor. And I've asked a lot of people to look into that and get a legal reading on it. And I'm also asking that because I don't want to necessarily raise Governor Polis's awareness of this. And, you know, maybe he really can't do it in Colorado, but he might try to do it anyway. So I would say, let's sit back a little bit on this. That's just my opinion.
Thank you, Evie. I know that you've asked a question and some folks have asked the question of, is it the governor's jurisdiction or the legislature? I don't know that anyone has done like a close legal analysis, but from what we've been hearing, it does seem that states are focusing on governors and making sure they don't opt in. And I know Governor Polis is aware to some degree of this already. He's been quoted in news articles saying something about he's interested or excited, something like that, about the prospect. And I think Colorado is in kind of a unique situation where obviously we are a blue state, but this is the kind of thing that our governor is more interested in. So there is some of our national partners are invested in supporting us as a state because they know that there's sort of some interest from the governor's office. So
wasn't his supposed interest to use it for scholarships for public schools, which some people have said it could conceivably be used for. I have heard him in the past say he opposes vouchers. And another thing I wanted to mention is I also heard that we only have 3 SGOs in the state at this time.
I did not know
I would
that.
say, please do a lot more research before you jump into this.
Okay. Thank you so much for speaking up about it. I will share, I don't know, Delana, if you have this link, I might have to drop it in the chat later on. There was a report released just in the last week or so by the National Education Policy Center, which is through CU, I believe, that they did like an extensive analysis of whether, I think they're still sort of ironing out like rules and regulations on how this might look, but the Education Policy Center suggested in their policy memo about it that it couldn't actually be used. I know there's been some conversation, Evie, as you pointed out, about potentially trying to find a way to finagle how to use the funds for public education. In this report, which I have not fully read, but would be happy to share, seems to suggest otherwise. So I appreciate you bringing up the point. I definitely need to read more about it, and I will find that once we are in discussion and share it with everyone. Any other comments or questions?
There's a question.
Okay.
Sorry, I
in
just
the
put a
chat.
question in the.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
sorry,
I can't see the chat, so just pop off.
I was just asking if labor partners like a CEA on board, are there other unions that are on board in this coalition?
Yes. I don't believe, I'm hesitating only because I'm trying to remember who was present at the meeting last week when we most recently talked about it. I don't believe that CEA had a representative on that particular meeting. But obviously, CEA is against vouchers. They were the leaders on Amendment 80 last year, no on Amendment 80. And we have talked with them in other spaces about taking more action on this. I think earlier, I know some folks from CEA were sort of interested in exploring the question that Evie raised about whether the funds could be used in other ways. So I don't know exactly where they are at in terms of their internal conversation, but it's something that we've talked with them a lot about. And they are against vouchers and interested in supporting. I think they're sort of internally figuring out what that might look like. And if there's
I'm
anyone
also involved
Sure.
with United Campus Workers, if it's not directly related to K-12 education, but I imagine they would sign on and support this as well, if that's of interest.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, as you can tell, we're still kind of figuring out strategy. And actually, I did want to mention also the conference that Lisa Lee and I are at this week is hosted by Peer, and they are the folks sort of leading the charge nationwide against the ECCA, like opting in. So I'm really excited to pick people's brains here and chat more with the folks that are like leading this effort. So after this week, I think we'll have more updates for you all. And yeah, we would love I think there will be an ask in the near future to share things with other organizations that you're all connected to. So I think that's a great offer, and I appreciate that.
Chris, and I was just going to suggest that I think broad reach of parents and students could be probably most effective on this. And that, so to the extent you guys can create simple talking points and email text things for families, not just for the current governor, but probably for those who are running for office, I think that could be really valuable. I have a hard time, having watched the governor over the last umpteen years, that he would not in some way, shape, or form want to move forward on something like this.
Yeah, that's a great point about the candidates, and it definitely is something that the coalition has also been thinking about and being part of the conversation. And I will share that the Colorado Statewide Parent Coalition is, Paulina, I don't know if you're on the call today. Okay, I don't think so. But the Colorado Statewide Parent Coalition is part of Great Schools Thriving Communities, and I know they are especially interested in thinking about how to talk to like everyday people and parents and folks that are not, might not be aware of this, and particularly in different communities, like CSPC is very involved in the Latinx community, and kind of thinking about messaging that might work for some of their constituents and members. So that I thank you for the talking point suggestion. That is definitely something that we're thinking about. And again, if anyone here is interested in working more closely with us on that, please just drop your name in the chat, or you can send me an email, and I will follow up with you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to keep us moving. Okay, let's have me stop talking in a minute and get to hear from all of you. I did just want to highlight, this is kind of going back to our celebration section. I'm super excited that we've had a lot of activity with the Get It Done campaign lately, brought on by some of you that are in this meeting right now. So Christy Hargrove set up a meeting with the Adams 12 superintendent and some of their administrative staff. We went over to Thornton yesterday and had a really awesome meeting with their superintendent. And so thank you, Christy, for connecting us in your community. I met recently last week, I think, with Martha, Jerry, Tina, and Allison to talk about potential next steps within the Boulder Valley School District. I'm really excited about doing some more presentations there and continuing to connect. Maybe we'll get to connect with legislators and kind of thinking of next steps. Jen recently organized a presentation at her school, Denver South, and also is working on inviting lots of parent groups from other Denver schools. That's happening next month. So thank you so much, Jen, for stepping up there. Sadie also recently talked with her union in Aurora about potentially having the school board pass a resolution in favor of the adequacy studies. Audrey and Chris each individually met with Great Ed to learn more about building a team in their school district and brainstorming about bringing some other folks on board. And then Lisa, Consuelo, and Tony are pulling together an awesome group of local leaders in Summit that have a lot of energy around the school finance and advocacy. So those are just a few of the highlights. I know it's not an exhaustive list, but I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of those folks for taking this initiative and share with the whole group like some of the exciting things that we've recently done and that we have coming up. So I'm going to stop sharing and actually come see everyone. I'd love to give people an opportunity to come off mute and talk about what else you might want to highlight or celebrate that either you're working on, that has recently happened in your district, or that if there's someone else you want to give a little shout out to. Mimi, I'm sure you have a shout out you can share.
Do I? Do you have one in mind? Um, I'm drawing a blank.
That's okay. Anyone else want to acknowledge something cool happening in their district? Or appreciate someone else on the call?
Well, thank you for doing this all by yourself today without Lisa. You know, it's always a little intimidating when she's not here. So thank you for leading us through this.
All right. Well, keep thinking on it, everyone. I'll move us into our next portion of the meeting. Okay, so instead of having a like out loud discussion, I'm going to share a Padlet board in the chat, and I'll put it up on the screen as well. So for those who haven't used Padlet before, it's it's the same thing as Google, not Google Classroom. I don't know. There was a Google version that's not active anymore. I can't think of what it's called. But it's a board that everyone can contribute to. You can create, use your actual name if you'd like to, or I think if you just click the link or scan this QR code, it gives you sort of like a silly fake username. But I'm going to give 4 or 5 minutes for everyone to navigate onto this board and just give us some feedback about things you're inspired to do by the end of 2025. Is there anything that you are really excited about thinking forward to 2026? And then what support will you need from me, Lisa, Delana, folks at Grade Ed, from the Get It Done campaign, or any other anyone else in this education space to help you get these things done. And I invite you all, if you're sort of having a hard time thinking about some of your answers, think back to some of the things that we talked about earlier in the slides as I breezed through all of that content. We were talking about some legislative updates. We talked about ballot initiatives. We talked about vouchers. So we'd love to hear your own ideas of things that feel energizing and inspiring. But if you can't think of anything else, please reflect on some of the other stuff that we've talked about and think about how you might be able to plug in there. So I'm going to give us until 5:15 for folks to keep filling that out. And the cool thing about this Padlet is that we will be able to like share the link with you all to look back on, for us as a team to look back on, and even to share in our recap email. So I'm excited to see what you all come up with, and this is something that we can kind of keep referencing as we continue our work together. I'm going to go on mute for 2 or 3 more minutes. All right, I'm going to give folks 1 more minute. I'll read off a few of the things that we have on there. And then I believe after this, we'll just close out with some action steps. All right, thank you, everyone. Please keep dropping things on there as you continue to think of something. But I'm trying to, trying to just share this. Okay, I'm seeing people are talking about school board campaigns and making sure no voucher-friendly folks are on the school board. That's great. Jerry, love to see some of this, that we talked about in our BVSD meeting recently, setting up some meetings to give presentations and sharing some articles, engaging legislatures. Even though they're supportive, we need to hear Clear Creek voices. Martha is interested in writing an op-ed for the Daily Camera and Boulder Reporting Lab. That's awesome. How to provide guidance to schools regarding adjustments with ever-changing political landscape for LGBTQ plus folks in Colorado. Amazing work. Good luck. But thank you for doing that. All right, 2026 midterms. I love that. Unique tilapia. Folks are talking about Advocacy Day, graduated income tax, D11 school board, ballot initiative, turn the house blue. Heck yeah. Show parents and community that they have impact in district decisions. I really appreciate this. I think with the Get It Done campaign, that's definitely part of what where we're hoping to go is, we have a lot of people on this call have been doing this work for a long time, and we're trying to bring in maybe newer parents, people that haven't been as involved in advocacy, and really something that we're increasingly saying with the Advocates Network is that you don't need to be an expert to be an advocate. That's kind of the mindset that we are bringing to Advocates Network and to the Get It Done campaign. So I really appreciate this. Pursuing elected office in my county. Amazing. And work on ballot initiative. Okay. Presentations from two groups in our district from Grade Ed. We can definitely do that. Unique Tilapia, whoever you are, I invite you to send me an email or message me in the chat so we can make some connections. Simple language as possible, information on the ballot initiative. That is definitely something that the Protect Colorado's Future Coalition is working on. I know that they are, I think I shared this earlier, doing some message testing right now. And in the next month or so, and the communications group of the coalition is definitely working on that as well. Like, how can we talk with regular people who are not policy wonks about what this is and what this will do for Colorado? Database or catalog of resources for parents, families, and communities to advocate. Amazing. Compelling and catchy messaging. Okay, well, back to that point about a database of resources. This is definitely not an exhaustive list, but I will drop in the chat right now our Get It Done toolkit, which has, there's a document in this folder that says start here, which kind of explains like everything else that you can find in there. So I'm gonna put that in the chat right now. And if there's something, if you have like comments on something, a resource that's in there, or if there's something that's not there that you'd like to see, I would love to hear from you because this toolkit is sort of ever evolving. So it has helpful resources to start, but again, I'm happy to build it out more. All right. So we have about 10 minutes left of our meeting. Any other comments or questions on that Padlet discussion before I move on? Everyone's feeling kind of shy today. That's okay. All right. No problem, Caitlin. Thank you for being here. I am going to go back to sharing my screen and just share a few final updates. I would love if everyone could take 3 minutes to make sure that you're all signed up for Public School Strong. I know this is something that you've probably heard from us a lot at this point, but I have recently been in conversation with people who thought they were on it and then actually hadn't signed up. I know that Grade Ed before my time was maybe looking at another platform. So it's possible that you have signed up for something else than the one that we're moving forward with, which is Public School Strong. So here's a QR code for the Colorado statewide group. And then there's also, we are hoping that you and everyone else that joins us on Public School Strong will both be part of the statewide group and the district group. So if you don't have a group for your district, you can use that QR code to search. If one doesn't exist, I would love to hear from you. You can either just go ahead and sign up to make a team right now, or if you have more questions, you can definitely send me an email. My email is kristenw@greateducation.org. So I'm going to give 1 more minute for everyone to scan those codes, try to log into Public School Strong to just ensure that you're on there, because as we're building up these local teams, we're going to be migrating more folks over there. And we really need our base group of supporters, which includes you all, to be there too as we continue to build it up. Okay, and Delana dropped those links in the chat as well. So there's the statewide group, and then the option to search for your district. All right, and with our last couple minutes, I'm going to share a few more action items. The first thing is that Great Education was invited to table this Saturday at the New King's Day rally at the Capitol. So the event is happening from 12 to 4 p.m. I will be there starting sometime before that, maybe around 11 to set up, 11 or 11:30 probably, but I'll definitely be there 12 to 4. And I imagine that some of you were already planning to attend, so if you would like to just join me in sitting or standing at a table and passing out some great ed swag and talking with folks about public education, that would be great. If you were not planning to attend, this is your official invitation to hang out with me. And so if you're interested, please type volunteer and your email in the chat, or you can just send me an email. Totally no problem if you can only be there for part of the time. Like I said, I will be there that whole time, and I would love to have some company. Our next action item, as we mentioned, this is our last meeting before the elections. I feel like time is flying. I don't know if you all agree. But we really hope that you all can share the public education voter slate that we talked about at the beginning of this call. And honestly, just remind people to vote, because as many of us know, since it is, an odd number year, a lot of people who aren't as plugged in as maybe we are just forget about elections, or it's not a priority, and then the time to hand in your ballot or to show up at the polls passes. So this is an easy opportunity for you to give people this guide, and also to just remind them to vote in November. So there's one QR code for the slate that links directly to the Great Ed website. And then we also have posted about it on Facebook recently. So if it's easier for you to just reshare or to post that on your own Facebook, we would love to have you do that. And I'm hoping that everyone here can have 5 conversations with people in their lives to help spread the word about this. Okay, and then our perhaps most fun action item is to get your Great Ed and Get It Done swag. We have a bonfire account, which, if you're not familiar, is super cool, because you can sort of choose, the type of clothing that you prefer. If you like a t-shirt, if you like a crew neck or a hoodie, you can kind of choose your options. This is an awesome way to represent the campaign in the community, get the word out there, and also show Great Ed a little love financially. And I'm not wearing my Great Ed shirt, but I am wearing a Public School Strong shirt. So shout out for branded swag. Okay, and then this is really leaving you in suspense. This image was supposed to be a graphic about the voucher campaign. But stay tuned for updates on what Great Ed and the Great Schools Thriving Communities Coalition is doing. Thank you to those of you who put your names in the chat. I will be following up with you. And we will also share some, like with our more general audience, calls for action in the coming weeks. So keep an eye out for that. Okay, we're right on time. Thank you all so much for being here for this hour with us. Thank you for your patience with me as I'm a little discombobulated and not looking at the chat and just talking at you. I'm really glad that you all were here. I'll stay on for a few minutes afterwards if anyone has more questions. And thank you so much for your input as well. I'm really excited about the Padlet board, and we will continue conversations this week about the federal voucher program, answer some of the questions that you've all raised, and we will get back to you. Okay, that is our last slide. Thank you all so much. Hi, Anne. I just saw your comment about, I'm going to stop the recording.